create sustainable design. We'll provide a path to lifelong wellness, personalized health solutions, and basic nutrition to build vibrant communities. We'll ensure access to justice for all, empower citizens to redefine our democracies, and demand political representation that reflects our diversity. We'll create sustainable housing, jobs that keep pace with the times, and an economy that's good for the environment. We'll weave technology into the clothes we wear and the stories we tell as we bring the virtual world to life. And we'll create communities that always welcome newcomers, celebrate their role in our shared success, and serve as examples of how to live as one. We are Ryerson. To us, innovation means creating a future in which we'll harness the sun, the rain, and the earth to create sustainable design. We'll provide a path to lifelong wellness, personalized health solutions, and basic nutrition to build vibrant communities. We'll ensure access to justice for all, empower citizens to redefine our democracies, and demand political representation that reflects our diversity. We'll create sustainable housing, jobs that keep pace with the times, and an economy that's good for the environment. We'll weave technology into the clothes we wear and the stories we tell as we bring the virtual world to life. And we'll create communities that always welcome newcomers, celebrate their role in our shared success, and serve as examples of how to live as one. We are Ryerson. To us, innovation means creating a future in which we'll harness the sun, the rain, and the earth to create sustainable design. We'll provide a path to lifelong wellness, personalized health solutions, and basic nutrition to build vibrant communities. We'll ensure access to justice for all, empower citizens to redefine our democracies, and demand political representation that reflects our diversity. We'll create sustainable housing, jobs that keep pace with the times, and an economy that's good for the environment. We'll weave technology into the clothes we wear and the stories we tell as we bring the virtual world to life. And we'll create communities that always welcome newcomers, celebrate their role in our shared success, and serve as examples of how to live as one. We are Ryerson. To us, innovation means creating a future in which we'll harness the sun, the rain, and the earth to create sustainable design. We'll provide a path to lifelong wellness, personalized health solutions, and basic nutrition to build vibrant communities. We'll ensure access to justice for all, empower citizens to redefine our democracies, and demand political representation that reflects our diversity. We'll create sustainable housing, jobs that keep pace with the times, and an economy that's good for the environment. We'll weave technology into the clothes we wear and the stories we tell as we bring the virtual world to life. And we'll create communities that always welcome newcomers, celebrate their role in our shared success, and serve as examples of how to live as one. We are Ryerson. To us, innovation means creating a future in which we'll harness the sun, the rain, and the earth to create sustainable design. We'll provide a path to lifelong wellness, personalized health solutions, and basic nutrition to build vibrant communities. We'll ensure access to justice for all, empower citizens to redefine our democracies, and demand political representation that reflects our diversity. We'll create sustainable housing, jobs that keep pace with the times, and an economy that's good for the environment. We'll weave technology into the clothes we wear and the stories we tell as we bring the virtual world to life. And we'll create communities that always welcome newcomers, celebrate their role in our shared success, and serve as examples of how to live as one. We are Ryerson. To us, innovation means creating a future in which we'll harness the sun, the rain, and the earth to create sustainable design. We'll provide a path to lifelong wellness, personalized health solutions, and basic nutrition to build vibrant communities. We'll ensure access to justice for all, empower citizens to redefine our democracies, and demand political representation that reflects our diversity. We'll create sustainable housing, jobs that keep pace with the times, and an economy that's good for the environment. We'll weave technology into the clothes we wear and the stories we tell as we bring the virtual world to life. And we'll create communities that always welcome newcomers, celebrate their role in our shared success, and serve as examples of how to live as one. We are Ryerson. To us, innovation means creating a future in which we'll harness the sun, the rain, and the earth to create sustainable design.
Perfect. Thank you. And hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Samantha, and I am pleased to be your host for today's Architectural Science Portfolio session as part of our virtual open house. Thank you for joining us today. We are a diverse community providing a space that is welcoming and open to everyone. To start, I would like to acknowledge the Indigenous land our university is on. So Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. I'm privileged to be in this space and reminded of the work that we need to be doing towards amplifying Indigenous voices and perspectives. I also want to share that the university has accepted all 22 recommendations from the Standing Strong Task Force on Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation, 2 of which being to address the legacy of Egerton Ryerson, our namesake, and to rename the university. We are excited and optimistic about this next chapter, and we hope that you will join us as we write it together. I also want to share a few Zoom housekeeping tips before we get started. First, we are mindful of security concerns while using this platform. If there are any major disruptions that interrupts the host's ability to keep control of the Zoom platform, we will ask everyone to log off immediately. We encourage respectful dialogue in Zoom at all times, and we absolutely encourage you to ask as many questions as you would like. Behind the scenes, we have a variety of faculty, staff, admissions, and recruitment officers, program experts, and current students. So feel free to ask questions all throughout today's session. To do so, all you have to do is click the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom account to open the dialog window and type your questions throughout the presentation. You'll also be able to see responses in the My Questions section of the Q&A. You may rearrange your screen in any way that suits you best, and note that rearranging your screen does not impact the way that others are viewing this presentation. This session will also be closed captioned, so if you would like to access this feature, click the live transcript available at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you are able to move the text box around in any way that suits you best. Now, I'll also give you a quick admissions update. For those of you that may have already submitted an application, we thank you. We are in the process of reviewing applications and releasing these initial acknowledgement emails. We do plan to release acknowledgement emails by the end of this week. And once you receive your acknowledgement email, you'll be able to set up your Choose Ryerson applicant portal page and account details. So stay tuned for that email into your inbox. Now, I'd like to know who is joining us today. So I'm going to launch a poll where you can tell us a little bit again about who is joining us. Maybe you're an applicant for fall of 2022. Perhaps you're a prospective student who might be applying to us sometime in the future. Maybe you're a college or university transfer student looking to join us as part of our vibrant transfer community. Perhaps you're a parent or a guardian looking for some more information, a teacher, a counselor, or a proud alumni from the institution. I'll leave the poll open just for a couple more seconds. We can get some final answers through before we kick today's session off. And with that, I'll end the poll. Looks like the majority of folks are looking at applying for fall of 2022, although we have a great mix of different individuals. No matter who you are and what your application status is, we do thank you for joining us. Without any further ado, I'm going to pass things over to June from the Architectural Science program to start today's session. So over to you, June.
Thank you, Samantha. Hi, everyone. How are you today? So welcome to the Ryerson University Department of Architectural Science Portfolio Workshop. These are a few images of our building, so to get an understanding of what the physical space you're applying to looks like. So as you probably know, there are different paths to becoming an architect, and part of that path is an educational path. And we offer a 4-year undergraduate program, and that coupled with a 2-year master's program enables you to then become an intern, then take the licensing exam, and then become an architect. But there are other paths to that. You can do a 4-year undergraduate that's not an intensive 4+2 program, and then you can do a 3.5-year master's. So we are the program at the top of the screen. What we also offer is an option for a 5th year that would be a co-op program. So our program is 4 years plus 2-year masters after our undergraduate program. Then you're an intern architect, then you take your exams, and then you become licensed. And if you want to work in an office but not be licensed, that's also an option. Not everyone goes through the entire process for licensure, and they have a great career as a designer at another level. To get into this 4-year program, we have a portfolio requirement that is, since the beginning of COVID, digital. And so it is still a digital submission of your portfolio. And the non-academic requirements are only this year a portfolio and an application fee to process that portfolio. And this should be your best creative work. So the process is that you assemble your work, you take photographs of it and scans of it, you turn it into a digital PDF, and then you submit it through our portal. And we are expecting from you a variety of media, drawings, paintings, sculpture, furniture design, anything that really shows your creative process, your creative potential to become an architect. Do not submit technical drafting exercises that are from a drafting class in your high school, because that really doesn't show your creative potential and your aptitude. This is an example of a few pages from a portfolio that we received a few years ago. And here are some other examples. And you can see that line drawings are acceptable. Designs for fashion are acceptable. Jewelry design is acceptable. We accept a huge variety of creative work in 2 and 3D. Furniture design, sculpture. In the center is a wall sculpture that you can is a sculpture that you can see was photographed from different angles. The chair was photographed from different angles, and the wall sculpture, because it's fairly flat, is just photographed from one angle here. And so you can see a typical page layout of a sculpture on this sheet here. It gives us a real sense of the 3-dimensionality and the materials used for the work. So the portfolio should be between 12 and 14 examples of your own best creative work that highlights and demonstrates the range and variety of your interests and abilities through a range of different media. So please Carefully select and format your work to show it in the best way possible. For three-dimensional work, include several photographs to show the work from different angles. Do not include Revit or AutoCAD technical drawings. As I said before, you can include a lot of diverse things like clothing design, set design, jewelry design, furniture design, ceramics, metalwork, woodwork, creative photography. In other words, not vacation snapshots, but stills from video work, web design, or carefully created photography compositions. And in addition to more traditional artistic and design work, you can, we can talk more after this presentation about things that you wonder if they would be acceptable to include. In other words, it should be a sample of your very best work, not all of your work. We want to see quality, not quantity. And if you have a variety of different themes or a variety of different media, organize it and use a table of contents to show us, let's say, 3 sculptures and 4 paintings and 2 drawings and a couple of pieces of woodwork. So a table of contents will help you organize it so we can kind of perceive the variety of work that you do. One frequently asked question is, if I take several photos of one piece, is that considered 4 pieces or is that considered 1 piece? So several photos of one piece counts as only 1 piece, even if they take up several pages in your portfolio. Process drawings, if you want to show that, that's considered as part of that 1 piece. So don't be afraid to show us more than 1 page that would indicate the work that you did on 1 piece. For each piece, please include the title, if you have one, the medium or media that you used to create it, the date executed approximately, like, winter 2020. The size of the original piece is very helpful if it's a very large sculpture or a very tiny little piece of jewelry. And let us know if it's a school project or a self-directed one. So as I said before, several photos of 1 piece count only as 1 piece, like this example that I just showed here. You can use simple software that creates a very nice, consistent look to format your pieces when you're formatting the sheets for your PDF. InDesign is terrific if you have it and if you know how to use it, but even Microsoft Word or Pages or PowerPoint, more simple software, can provide a simple, clean layout for your work. The entirety of your portfolio should be submitted as one PDF file, and please ensure that you upload your portfolio contents correctly and completely, as multiple submissions will not be considered. Applicants are required to submit all components of their non-academic requirements via the Choose Ryerson applicant portal. So there are some resources and guides that you can use to help you figure out how you want your portfolio to look and what contents you should put in them. Always, if you have an art teacher at school, they're a very good person to reach out to give you some advice. 11th graders can make use of National Portfolio Day. In the past, they had one session in Toronto every fall, and you would have to sign up for it and go to it. And it's at one college or university that sponsors it that year. It's very often at OCAD. This year, because of COVID, it's online, and there are a number of sessions during the fall, and there are still several sessions to sign up for. I would definitely go there. It's very, very useful. So you just Google National Portfolio Day and it should pop up. And then sign up for one of the November sessions that are still upcoming. And they're very, very soon. So I would do that right away. It's an incredibly good resource for anyone who's applying to architecture school or our interior design department, or even our fashion, other I know that several of you are applying to more than one program at Ryerson. So anything that's portfolio based, this is a fantastic resource for you. Also, California College of Art and Design have a very good advice section on their website. So that's another thing that you can Google to get some advice about portfolios. And there are books in many public libraries on portfolio design. One of our own instructors, our Professor Vincent Hui, wrote the Architecture Portfolio Guidebook that I think is available through Amazon and probably through several libraries. And then there's one that's in a lot of libraries called Portfolio Design by Harold Linton. So one very important tip, do not copy your work from photographs or other sources. This means no fan art, no anime, no manga, unless you have designed that anime or manga creatures yourself. Nothing from another artist's work. Admissions officers have seen hundreds, probably thousands of images from student portfolios, and they are well trained to quickly spot artworks that have been copied from photographs or have been lifted from other resources. I mean, you can use photography as part of your design process, but in other words, don't see just some image on the internet and think, oh, I'll copy that. That's not going to show your creativity and your ingenuity and your ability to think design processes in 3D. So we want to see your skill, your creativity, your originality, and also your ability to think in 3D is very useful. So go to our website for more information about the non-academic requirements. So I'm going to show you a little bit of student work, and you might notice on your screen there's an image of Tommy, who's one of our undergraduates, and I asked him and a few other undergraduates to provide some scans of their portfolios from when they entered Ryerson. So here's a few pieces from Tommy, and he can answer your questions about it after I stop speaking. Here's another one, which is a self-portrait. And you can see that there's a title, there's in very small letters that you probably can't read. It talks about the materials, when it is made, when it was created, and what else does it say? A few other things about the work, it just very briefly. So we have some basic understanding of what the pieces are. And here's an example of one of his photographs that you see is not a vacation snapshot. It's beautifully composed and very poetic. This is work of another student, Hira. So this is an example of a piece that you would not ordinarily think of as something to put in a portfolio. She designed I don't know exactly what to call this, an emblem to sew on a sweatshirt. A sculpture. This is a work of another student. She did a lot of paintings and she put those in her portfolio. And some collage work and drawings. And here's another painting. One quick aside that I thought I would mention is that there is a new scholarship that was begun, I think, last year, the Knoll Diversity Advancement Scholarship for Black students. So if you qualify, you should go onto their website. I went last night to see if it was still up and running, and they have not yet posted next year's scholarship. It just says more information soon, but I would put that on your radar if you're looking for a scholarship. Do you have any questions? If you have questions later that you can't think of now, write down the email, my email address, that's my email address on the top, and Deepa Jojo's email address. If you're going to ask questions next semester, she will direct you to someone who's replacing me for one semester when I'm on sabbatical. So djojo for Deepa Jojo at ryerson.ca. And now I'll just open it up to questions. Should I turn off my screen here? Stop the share?
June, if you want to keep it on, I'm happy to throw some questions your way because, of course, we have lots coming through the Q&A, and definitely feel free to continue putting them in the Q&A. But the first one that I want to address is from Isabel. Should we put images of the same art piece on one paper when we submit it? So you can talk about maybe just the submission of what that looks like.
Okay, so I guess I'll just go back and show actually this one. So this was something that was on one page, but I could easily see that being a 2-page fold out where you'd have 2 pages with the facing pages with different images of that same piece on it. So you could actually have 3 or 4 pages for one piece. Like I could see 1 page of sketches, 1 page of process photos, another page of the final project. So it can have multiple pages. I think that's more or less what you're looking to answer.
Yeah, that sounds right, June. And then we have a question regarding whether if an individual traced small outlines of certain components of the piece, but it's still their own idea and composition, would that be acceptable?
Sure. I mean, I'd have to see it to figure out exactly what you're talking about, but you certainly can use any medium that you want to, including tracing something that you have done yourself. Yes.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions regarding like individual work and that type of thing. So another question, someone was looking for clarification regards copying other people's work. So directly copying, or could we submit a version we did of another artist's work? So maybe go over that again, just a little bit more.
Well, we want to see your own original ideas. And if you're just doing a direct copy, that is totally not your own original idea at all. On the other hand, if in, let's say, an art class, they asked you to copy a work and then transform it radically, it might be useful to see the copied work to understand which piece you copied before you did that radical transformation. So I know that that is an assignment that some high schools have, radically transform this famous iconic work and make it your own. So in that case, you might want to show both of them.
We've got a couple of questions regarding 3D things. So are 3D paper models acceptable, and are 3D pieces acceptable as part of the portfolio?
Not only is it acceptable, it is so welcome, because we really want to see how you can think in 3D, because that is a really big part of our program. We ask students to do models all the time. They're always thinking in 3D because buildings are a very 3D thing. So the more you can show us that you can design in 3D and think in 3D and produce in 3D, the better that is. So I think not only is it acceptable, it is strongly encouraged. And because of the nature of 3D and you're sending us something flat, photograph it from different angles so we really understand it.
Perfect. We have some students excited about that, which is great. We had a question regarding photography. So photographs of destinations with clever photo techniques, such as rule of thirds, for example, would that be accepted?
Yes, but make sure it doesn't look like just a snapshot of my vacation or a selfie of me and my friends, because that's just totally not. And I would not limit your portfolio to just photographs, because we really encourage people to show that they can draw and that they can model, because if you can only photograph, I think that isn't enough of a skill set to do well in our program.
We have a question regarding some of the digital tools. So I know you mentioned earlier a little bit about digital tools for the portfolio, but whether there are any digital tools accepted to create a digital design for their portfolio.
Oh, I think digital design is quite acceptable. I just, when I'm talking about an AutoCAD or a Revit drawing, those are mostly tools that you learn in high school to learn how to draft. And we don't want sort of a drafted house or something like that. But if you're using digital tools to create a digital sculpture, using some students have learned Rhino, some students have learned 3D Studio Max, some students have learned SketchUp. Those tend to be more creative products rather than just by rote house design that doesn't show creativity. So make sure it shows your creativity. Ask yourself, is this creative? Is this original? And that answering that question with a yes will make it more acceptable to the portfolio.
No, we've had some questions regarding some different forms of media. So one question was, is musical composition considered appropriate? And another question was, can we provide video or audio clips in the portfolio? So music, video, and audio, are those acceptable?
Well, as much as I love music, unfortunately, we are not a music program, so it won't really help us that much. But if you have created, let's say, a video to go along with that piece that you've composed, stills from that video are totally appropriate. You could do a whole page of stills. We don't at this point accept links to videos online, so we would have to see stills from that video. But I think you could do a nice composition showing a bunch of stills, sort of like a storyboard, to show the video that you have designed and created.
Someone was asking about creations from games. So for Minecraft, for example, would something like that be acceptable?
Very possibly, yes. But I would not show just Minecraft designs. I'd show a variety of media.
Now this question, less about the portfolio and more about the program, I would say itself. Is it a setback to not already know how to use AutoCAD or any other type of design software?
It's a good idea to be computer literate, but most of our students come in without any prior knowledge of AutoCAD or other media. But if you're concerned about learning that ahead of time, that you can get 90-day free trials of a lot of this software. And if you can prove that you're a student, I think the Autodesk company that produces Revit and AutoCAD allows you to have a free license, and then you can start playing around with it now and over the summer and become familiar enough with it so you can be up and running when you need it.
Yeah, I know a lot of high schools have things like communications technology classes. For me, when I was back in the day in high school, I took that, and that was my personally first exposure to AutoCAD. So maybe if you're in a younger year, that might be something you might want to look into and see if your school has that.
Samantha, was that a help for you when you started?
To go into architecture, no, because I'm terrible at math, but it was really fun. The AutoCAD and the creativity and the design aspects really great. I would have for sure floundered, but that's why I do enjoy going into the architectural science building and walking around and seeing all the things that I could personally never do. And that's why I went to journalism school.
Okay, so that explains that.
We have a student asking again about kind of more clarification on what you can submit in terms of things that already exist. So one student asked if they can submit sketches of famous buildings, and another student is again curious about like copying from your own picture that you've done already.
You could copy from your own picture that you've done already. Some of the most famous artists in the world have used photographs and as a basis for their work, but don't use photographs that other people have taken. And also drawings of famous buildings are fine to use, I think, but look at them very critically and ask, is this a drawing of a famous building, or does this show my creativity? Is this my interpretation of what the building is like? Is this showing what I see when I look at this building?
Do you have any advice on how to submit sketchbook pages? That was a question from someone.
Oh, scanning is better than photographing it, way better. If you don't know how to scan well, ask around and ask other people to help you. Many of the latest phones have pretty good scanners on them, but if you just randomly scan, it won't come up that very, very well. You want to pick up the nuances in a pencil sketch by setting it on grayscale instead of black and white. or even color instead of black and white. And you want to get rid of that ragged edge if you're pulling it off of a spiral bound book. We don't want to see that. And you could even pull it then into Photoshop and make sure that the important lines don't drop out because they're too light, and fix it a little bit that way. But if you scan it under very good light conditions, so the background doesn't look gray or brown. So you want the background to look white and the drawing to look dark. So the contrast is high enough for us to see it well. So very good light conditions. Ask someone to help you scan it 3 or 4 times with slightly different settings and see which one works best.
We had a question, excuse me. Is it possible to hand in modeling pictures of yourself as part of your portfolio?
I suppose you could, but I think it'd be more of the portfolio of the person who took the modeling photographs, because that seems to be, that's the artistic part of the work. But then I'm saying this as someone who is looking for who is doing the recording.
Well, I know that Tommy did that self-portrait. So maybe Tommy actually can talk a little bit about your creative process behind that, and like why you decided to submit that.
I think everyone should really think more about what it is that they want to express about themselves in a portfolio. That's really the more important thing. So my self-portrait was the first image on my portfolio, and I meant it not only as an introduction to myself, but to the technical ability that I know I'm most comfortable with, which is just graphite and charcoal drawing. So having this portrait as a first image of my portfolio, I thought not only gave them an introduction to who I am, but also to a technique that I'm very comfortable with. And, you know, this is just a great way for me to start kind of the presentation of my portfolio. I don't know if that answers the question.
It also isn't just a straight copy from looking in the mirror or a photograph or anything. Notice the buildings on the top. So he's saying, I am thinking about architecture all the time. So it's a transformed self-portrait, which I think is really both amusing and compelling. It shows creativity.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Tommy. We have a question, and I'm unfamiliar with this term, so hopefully, June, you are familiar with it. But the student says, I'm currently in a technological design class, and we're creating the tensegrity structures. Would including that structure in my portfolio be acceptable?
Are you in designing your own tensegrity structures, or are you copying some from famous architects? So that's a question that I have. If you're learning how tensegrity structures work and creating your own, definitely put that in. I think that could be really fun and really showing a creative process.
And the student clarified they're designing their own, which is great.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
We had another question regarding actual like house design, I believe, in terms of submissions for the portfolio. So someone said they're looking at submitting a house. Is that fine? Because I heard we can't include house or architecture related models.
A model would be okay. I don't want to see a drafted AutoCAD drawing. That's just not what we're looking for.
We had another question about photography. So can we submit photos we take of an object, not necessarily sculptures or other 3D works, but a flower or a model of someone else, for example?
Yes, you can, but I wouldn't put the entire, I wouldn't have photographs fill the entire portfolio, because it only shows one aspect of what you can do.
We have a student who says they're so happy to be here, and we're so happy you're here joining us as well. They are continuing to work on their portfolio, and they're wondering if there are any specific types of pieces that are recommended to be included. For example, a still life and figure drawing, which are typically included in several different types of portfolios. I also had another question regarding figure drawing. Since COVID has been limiting figure drawing classes, can we use references from anatomy books?
Yes, you can, but use references from anatomy books, but it's a good question. I guess I could only really answer that by saying, we don't say, I know that some schools say like when I was applying to school, when I was your age, one of the schools said, we want an old shoe, a bicycle. They had a list of things that they wanted me to draw, but we don't have that limitation. So I think it's up to you to create the breadth of work. And so we're not very specific. We don't have to have a still life. We don't have to have a self-portrait, but think about providing a variety of things so we understand the breadth of your knowledge and creativity.
Amazing. Questions regarding 3D house design with interior design as well. Is that something that would be able to be submitted?
You can, but I wouldn't fill the portfolio with that sort of thing.
And then another one kind of related, can we add floor plans that aren't from AutoCAD?
Why don't you try to stay away from architecture? I know that seems counterintuitive, but we're going to teach you how to do architecture. And any sort of knowledge that you have of the field will be a great bonus when you're here, but I think we mostly want to see other kinds of things. A sketch of an interior might be fine, but I don't think floor plans are a great idea.
Question regarding Photoshop. So is Photoshop acceptable for drawing and sketching?
Yes.
Okay, easy enough. For photography, could photos we've taken and added heavy filters on top of be accepted? How exactly can we have our creative photography accepted? Do you have any examples?
Don't think I have any examples of manipulated photographs here, but that could be pretty exciting. So don't be afraid to do that. If you're in doubt, you should ask your art teacher in your school. If you're not taking art, but there is an art teacher in your school, then ask them anyway. Say, I'm not one of your students, but I'm applying to architecture school. Can you look at my portfolio and tell me if you think this is an acceptable piece? They also might be able to help you with the layout of your pieces on the page, because that is a factor.
We have a student who says they've not studied art in school, but they're doing it all on their own, which is great. And what advice or words would you offer to an applicant like that individual?
Well, you still have a little bit of time. And if you have time on the weekends, I would either enroll in a course through some kind. Oh, Tommy wants to say some stuff. I'll let him talk first.
Sure, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No,
I wanted
fine.
to answer this one specifically because I'm someone who didn't take art in high school, actually. So I devoted a lot of my spare time on working on all of the pieces in my portfolio. All of them were just personal inspiration. So what I would suggest for you is to do that. As June was suggesting, take some time off, find what inspires you, whether it's in film or whether it's in nature, whatever it is, and take some of that time and try to reflect on it and express and practice, obviously, your technical ability and try to express yourself with what you're inspired. It sounds kind of a vague answer, but it's just to let you know that it's totally possible if you didn't take art in high school to think hard about how you want to express yourself and portray that in a portfolio.
There are also courses for people your age that are offered online right now because of COVID, from the Art Gallery of Ontario, from other museums, from community art centers. So you can look online for short courses and be able to make 4 or 5 interesting pieces from that are sort of guided by an instructor, and that might kind of spark you, and you might end up learning about a medium that you had never tried before that you happen to be good at. I remember the first time I took a sculpture class, and I had only been drawing and painting before that, and I thought, oh my God, this is where I belong. I am so much better at this than drawing. And so, you don't know until you try it. So I would say, if you find a short community art class, even if it's, let's say, a 1-day intensive workshop or something like that, that might add a few really good pieces to your portfolio.
And also YouTube. YouTube is a
And
great
also
resource.
YouTube. Yes, 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 YouTube. And also there's some very, very good drawing books. Drawing from the Right Side of Your Brain is a classic, excellent drawing book that you can find at most libraries.
Where would we be without YouTube, right? No, that's amazing, Tommy, to hear that, your perspective. I'm so glad you're able to join us for today's session then. We have a question about a piece. Again, it's kind of specific because I think students are a little bit worried about like tracing when they're not supposed to and stuff like that. So the student says they traced a photo of a person on Illustrator for the general body shape, but the piece as a whole, they drew everything themselves through Illustrator and created a new idea. Can they submit that?
It sounds perfectly acceptable. Yeah.
And then another gaming question. So the student there, they said, would designs from Sims 4 be a good way to express creativity in a portfolio?
I don't know how much leeway they give you in these games, only because I don't do games much myself, so I can't really answer. So you need to ask yourself, does this look like it's for the game, or does this look like an original idea?
We've had 2 students with questions regarding specs for the program. So what kind of computer do you recommend for architecture class? I have a Mac and I'm not sure if it supports some of the softwares. What computer type is best, PC or Mac?
Well, I'm talking to you from a Mac. There are a lot of people who prefer PCs. If it's a powerful enough Mac, you can actually, if there's some software that you want to use that's only for PC, and there's more and more software that is for Mac. But what I did when I wanted to use Rhino before Mac came out with, before Rhino came out with a Mac version, is I used Boot Camp to divide my computer into a Mac and PC. And so then I would go to the PC side, the dark side, when I wanted to use Rhino. And so you can stick with the computer that you have, but I don't know how powerful or how old the Mac is that you have. So when you get accepted into the program, there's plenty of time at the very beginning of the first year to consult with our computer experts and say, this is the hardware that I have. Will that support the software that I need? And I wouldn't buy one now for then, because of course they're going to come out with a new model between now and then, and you'll be wishing that you waited. So if you be comfortable with the one that you have at the moment, be aware that some of the instructors and students are loyal to Macs, and you don't have to get a PC, but PCs are often a little bit less expensive for the power that you get, so that some of these preferences are up to you, but don't buy one now. Wait till September.
That's great advice for all the programs. Your professors are going to go through everything like once you begin. So I know it's tempting to buy stuff, especially with that new Mac that came out, but try and hold off if you're able, just to make sure that you're actually talking to the folks in that moment. Another question about drawing something from someone else, or another piece, drawing something that's already been created. So would a piece be acceptable to submit as a drawing of a sculpture from a museum? So something they saw at a museum, a sculpture that they've drawn themselves.
I think that's okay, sure. But we want to see your creativity. So you're going to have to say about this drawing, what is it that makes this drawing special, interesting, outstanding? You, like there are, let's see how many people, 127 people in this room. And I don't know how many people will end up seeing this video after it's released, but let's say 5 times that amount. And we have spaces for about 128 people maximum in first year. So how does your portfolio stand out from everyone else's portfolio? That is the question you want to ask when you're putting it together. Does this drawing show how creative I am? Does this drawing show how skillful I am? Because you should probably have, let's say 20, 30 works, perhaps if you're lucky, to choose from, and you want to choose your 12 to 14 best pieces that best show what you can do. And it could be that that drawing is just an amazing drawing that shows how well you can understand something that's a three-dimensional object. And in that case, totally include it.
We have a question regarding timelines. So the student's asking if their favorite pieces of work were composed within different school courses, would this be looked at as unacceptable?
You can put them in from any school course, and it could be that your best work is from 10th grade rather than 11th grade, or from the summer before 10th grade. But that's totally fine. We assume that most of the students who get into our program have been doing art for quite some time and have been passionate about creating for quite some time.
Two questions regarding some of the written parts that can come with the portfolio. So first one, would written work such as poetry alongside the art be encouraged, or is that not wanted?
If there's a piece of art and a poem that go together, I think it would be very nice to have them both side by side, because then you would understand where that work came from. It give you some insight into that piece.
And then in addition of the written descriptions to aid each piece, sorry, let me say that again. Is the addition of written descriptions to aid each piece of work included in the portfolio encouraged?
I think a sentence or so would be very good, at least a caption and a very small description of the materials or what it was created for, but a sentence or two would be useful.
Yeah, great. And then any recommendations on how many types of medium a student might want to include?
Probably fewer than, let's say, you're supposed to include 14 pieces, so probably fewer than 14. It would be nice to see more than one piece in each medium, though sometimes that's not possible because you've only created one piece in that medium. Let's say for an art class, and they said, okay, this is your first clay sculpture, and so you only have that one. But if you have several pieces, it might be nice to divide your portfolio into, let's say, 3 drawings, 3 paintings, 3 wood sculptures. But I would say at least 3 different media.
And then again, we've had some students who are looking for a little bit more detail as to what you'd be looking for, because most of my ideas originally were going to be architecture based.
When you have ideas, do you draw them? I don't quite know how to answer that question without actually seeing your work. Because if you have the designs drawn in some way or modeled in some way, then showing us those drawings or models, that would be great.
Perfect. We're getting close to the end, as well as the end of our time. So would an AutoCAD elevation view of a house or a specific room be accepted?
Not a great idea.
Perfect. I've created a model of a famous building out of Bristol board. I have added different materials to create the colors on it. Would this be acceptable, or is this something that would be discouraged?
It's a little hard to say. So you were learning, I assume you were learning about that building when you were building that model. I'd rather see your own work than a model of someone else's work.
Well, then someone else just said our original building design's okay, like a drawing of a facility that we've personally designed.
Sure, but keep in mind that most of you haven't had much architectural experience, so we don't expect you to know how to design a building that rigorously. So we encourage you not to put in too much architecture into your portfolio.
Got a student wondering if it's acceptable to add color in their drawing.
Oh, totally. Yes, I think I showed some color examples in this slideshow. Absolutely, color is fine. It's funny, architects are often very afraid of color, but we shouldn't be afraid of color.
We have a student wondering if they should include the concept behind each piece in the portfolio.
Well, that could be very nice. That could be a theme that you do. So you have the concept sketch and maybe a sentence or two, and then the final product. And I think that that could be a way of organizing your whole portfolio.
A question regarding timeline. So a student's wondering if, or how old can a work be? Can it be older than 2019, for example?
Yes.
Would objects that have been 3D printed but designed on AutoCAD not work?
So a 3D printed design would be fine. I'm not adverse to designing on AutoCAD. I'm just kind of trying to warn you that when we see AutoCAD work, that's usually from a drafting course at school, this never impresses us. It would have to be really an exceptional piece to impress us. And so steer away from that, really. And if you're in doubt, ask your art teacher, does this show my creative ability? Always have that question when you're asking yourself whether to include it.
We've got a student wondering if all 12 to 14 pieces have to be within the same theme. So can it be different things? Can it be within the same theme?
Oh, you can have as many themes as you want.
Would a physical model of an original house with full process and SketchUp rendering be good to add?
Oh, that could be very good. Yeah, especially if it was something that you designed yourself and wasn't sort of a copy of a house style that you have seen before. So if it shows that you were designing it yourself. But I keep getting different questions of students trying to ask me to, in some different way, can an AutoCAD drawing be okay? And I'm just trying to tell you no, because usually they're not so great. And I want you to put your best foot forward. They will be much better after a few years of architecture school, but the stuff that you do in high school, usually we can see more of your creative process and your creative potential from other things.
Now we have a student that said they just want to double check because we have talked a little bit about captions or one or two sentences within the pieces, but they said on the website, the portfolio, it doesn't specifically say to include this. So they just want to clarify if sentences give a little insider information as to why we created this, is that good? And what could a caption look like? Like what are you looking for in the caption if that's the case?
A caption could be quite good. I would say talk about either your inspiration or the materials used or the process to get to that point, just a sentence or two. And you don't have to include that, but it can give us a little bit of insight.
And then a question regarding clothing or design pieces. Are those allowed to be included in the portfolio?
Absolutely. I think I showed some clothing design. Where was that? There. That's a clothing design and jewelry design. In fact, my own portfolio for architecture school was almost all sculpture and jewelry design. And people said, how are they going to accept you to a program that is designing huge things when you design tiny things? But design is design. And I think it shows our potential.
And someone's wondering if that includes something like beading work as well.
Beading work? Yes, beading work could be fine.
Another question about interiors. So would interior designs be acceptable, and would 2-point perspective drawings with buildings also be acceptable?
Yes, both, yes.
Just trying to go through, we don't have too many more questions, but we're almost at time. So I'm only going to take a couple more. Some of them are admissions, so we're going to let those to Pallavi. Okay, I had an optional assignment where I was given a material and it was our choice how to make art out of it. Would that be considered a school project, or is that a self-directed one?
if it was done, if it was assigned in school, then it's a school project. But we accept school projects. That's totally fine. In fact, often they're excellent because I've met a lot of art teachers on some of the meetings that we've had at Ryerson, and they really are very good at sparking creativity.
The student says, I had an idea of a passage of a book they read, described a scenery, and they drew that. Could I include that in my portfolio along with the cropped passage that it's based off of? Yes,
you could do that. Yes. So part of the challenge is balance. So you'd want the text to be rather small and your design, your drawing to be rather large. So we could, it's so you're just giving it to us as reference, and that would give us the context of why you designed this.
On that note, I think because it's 4:56 and we do have another panel after this that we have to get ready for, I think we're going to leave it at that. So I don't know, June, if at the end of this, if you have the slide with the visit us information, if you might want to flip to that, just so I can give my little spiel about how students can stay connected with us, which we absolutely want them to do. But yeah, we do actually have a panel after this, folks, and it features some students, which I think is really outstanding. So if you haven't already seen that, you can still register for it on our Future Students Events website, which June will shortly be posting on the PowerPoint slide. But as always, there it is. As always, thank you so much for everyone who's joined us, all of our behind the scenes folks, Tommy and June, for providing so much great insight into the portfolios, because we know we get a lot of questions. We know we have some really eager applicants and students. So we're so happy that you're able to join us for this session and give some more information. We are going to stay online for the next 3 minutes to answer any final questions. If your question doesn't get answered, though, we absolutely encourage you to continue staying connected with us. One of our student recruiters, Mariah, she actually is a graduate from the program, and she takes one-on-one meetings. So you can book a meeting with her, or you can talk to any of the recruitment officers like myself to help you answer any questions that you might have. So again, about 3 minutes left until the end of the session, and then we do have to shut down for that next student panel, which we hope lots of you might join us for. We do, of course, have tons of additional ways that you can stay connected with us. So you can check out our Future Students Events page to learn a little bit more about both virtual and in-person campus tours, how to meet a current student, how to book a meeting with a recruitment officer like myself, or again, my colleague Mariah, a graduate from the program, and much more. Now, our virtual open house does run from November 22nd to 27th and November 29th to December 4th, including a session on interior design, which I know there were some questions about in the chat as well. And there's a variety of sessions taking place across those 2 weeks. You also will be directed to a survey when the session ends, and we would really appreciate your valuable feedback on that. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to shut down our cameras as we leave this open for 2 more minutes to answer any final questions. But thank you so much. Thanks for your questions, and we hope to continue staying connected with you through the admissions cycle. Take care, everyone.